Now I am very excited to welcome back an amazing MMA handicapper and Lou Finocchiaro from gamlu.com and the Sneak Teep podcast. You can follow Lou on Twitter at gamlu. Lou, man, we are back. No more distractions of basketball. We are warming up in Arizona. How's the spring treating you?
Spring's great. We're talking on a Masters week. Baseball's going, but you're right. The UFC gets some eyeballs now, Kiev, because there's no basketball, there's no football, and it's kind of nice. It really runs for us until the Hall of Fame game, at which case we get dropped like a hot potato again for another season.
Yeah, but it's a long time before then. And that's exactly kind of how it is. For me, I still watch the UFC events at least on one screen. Don't get me wrong. I maybe wrongly or not, I prioritize some NFL over some UFC. But the funny thing is, at least lately, UFC's been kinder to me than the NFL. So I'm going to try to find the best things that work for me and anybody else that follows me here personally. But here we are, and that's an exciting event because UFC 314 is in America. It's in Florida at the Casaya Center in Miami. Is there anything significant about this venue?
Well, I don't know about the venue particularly, except that it will house a 30-foot cage, as opposed to last week at the Apex was a 25-foot cage. So there's way more real estate for these fighters to navigate. If you are a long-rangey striker and you're against a grappler or someone that wants to try and wrestle you, that space could be advantageous to you to keep them away. And so that has to be recognized as well. What these fighters love, they'll be in front of a huge fan base, and that's East Coast time. So by the time the main card goes, it's going to be 10. And at 10, there are going to be a lot of liquored up Miamians in that crowd watching the fight. So mostly what I would say, that's about the venue, or at least the physical settings. What's unusual about this card is when we go to England, we got English fighters and Irish fighters. And when we go to Brazil, we got Brazil fighters. We went to Florida. There's only one Florida fighter on this card. Not only that, there's only, it's him that trains in Florida, usually with all these Brazilians, and we have more than a handful on this card. They train at AT&T and all the great gyms in Florida. There's only one there. So any kind of home cooking or home advantage, or the crowd being for one of their big favorite Miami, that's off for this card, and we have pretty much a neutral fighter on fighter situation.
I find that strange too. I guess with the retirement of guys like Jorge Masvidal and others, there's just less Miami fighters. You'd know more than me. I kind of assumed Chandler might have been from that area, so I looked it up in my research. He's from Missouri, so I can't figure it out.
Actually, I'm stunned. There's only one fighter that trains out of a Florida gym on this card. I'm stunned about it. It's really unheard of. I don't see it often.
All right. Well, hey, neutral sites is sometimes better for the non-biased situation. So let's take a look into this card in general. What is your ranking of, it could just be a general conversation, but what are your thoughts on just the overall strength of UFC 14 compared to the other pay-per-views?
Well, Kiev, that's actually a great question, and I don't give great answers to this because I make a business out of 44 to 46 fight cards a year. So I look at each, even though I think by strength you mean curb appeal to the masses. And if that's what we're talking about, this is 7 or higher in a rank of 10. Maybe last week was a 4 or 5 because there wasn't a lot of name recognition. However, I never know. You never know what pitch is going to be the one that you hit. And I don't know which fight card it's going to be that I end up liking based on results. So I try and regard them all similarly. But when you look at the 5 fights we're going to talk about on this main card, you've got curb appeal, you've got fight styles that are going to be interesting, and you have intrigue because on a number of fights, I can honestly say when I tell you on 1 or 2 of these, I don't know. I'm telling you, I don't know.
I don't know is a better answer than a losing bet. That's what we always preach. Not knowing is fine. Just don't force anything if you want to be profitable in the future. So that's a great answer, Lou. And yes, I did mean curb appeal because although this is a betting show, I like to try to gauge how many people are going to be interested, just based upon maybe the crowd, maybe the excitement. But in general, what's more important is making money to this show and to you, into your business. And both you and I have cashed probably better in some of the smaller events on the weekly fight nights than we do sometimes in the big pay-per-view. But here we are talking strength. I find it very, very fortunate that Ilia Topuria relinquished his featherweight title in February. And I wonder if that was a precursor for Dana White to make this main event happen between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez, Lou.
Yeah, Volk was really aiming for Ilya. Ilya left, vacated. It is what it is. We get this fight now and other featherweight fights. Now we're still on strength a little bit. And we have such a strong main event. I know we're going to get to that. But as far as strength and curb appeal on this card, there is one fight that's a lightning striker, and that's this Bryce Mitchell against Jean Silva. Jean Silva is a literal hand grenade, and he is devastatingly powerful, and he's from the Fighting Nerds team, which is almost undefeated. I don't know when the Fighting Nerd has been defeated, and he's sawing through guys. Mitchell coming off this devastating knockout. They give him a patsy that can't strike in his last fight to give him a little momentum. However, Mitchell has said some things in the press and publicly that are really controversial, that rubs and rankles the UFC wrong. And because of that, they've given him a little medicine. Who's the medicine? Jean Silva. Jean Silva is in this fight to knock Mitchell out. John Silva opened 450. Now he's down to 230 or so. People are eating up Mitchell because last week they saw a wrestler in Pat Sabatini, huge 2-1 underdog, totally dominate the Brazilian killer that was supposed to go in there and knock his head off. They think that's going to happen here for many reasons. I don't think it will. But the fact that the Brazilian's saying he's going to scramble him and knock him out, and Mitchell's going to need counseling after this fight, and the fact that Mitchell feels insulted but knows that his remarks are controversial sets up intrigue in this card, in my opinion.
This is the fight I'm looking forward to, and you already got to that. And obviously the stories behind it and the stupid things that Bryce Mitchell says. He needs counseling now because some of the things he said about Germany, and I mean, I don't care if he does if Hitler does the eggs the same way as you. You don't say you like anything about that. And it really, really, and I totally understand Dana White making the correct comeback by calling him an absolute dumbass, because that's what Bryce Mitchell really is. He's a weird dude that trains kind of by himself on the farm. And it's like, after some of his comments, people do not want to be associated with him. But now you got Jean Silva, lots of hype, very interesting. Like you said, line movement on that, going back down towards the Bryce Mitchell. I think that might have made a few opportunities for some of my ideas, and we'll get to this fight very shortly. So very, very interesting that you brought that up. And I think, great minds think alike, because this is the fight I'm mostly looking forward to myself. But let's get to the undercard, Lou. Early prelims, there's it's not even too bad of a card, even in the early side of things, because I think there's going to be some great fights between Cedric Dumas and Michael O, who I know I will struggle pronouncing his last name, Lou, But I was looking at Michael O. I just don't see him losing this fight. And maybe you can help me out on some of your thoughts on this, whether you have a play or not. I think that Michael O could be a decent parlay piece, being that he's in that -190, -200 range.
Well, Michael O opened at 250, and on Monday when I did my sneak TP was 215, so he's come down a little bit. Why? Dumas is the one athlete on the card from Florida that trains in Florida, and he primarily is a striker, but in a striking battle, because we know Michael Olashayzik is a deft striker, a lot of power. And he recently went from 185 to 70. Excuse me. He went from light heavyweight 05 to 85, what has been a very good and appropriate move for him because he was too undersized at 205. So he gets this Dumas, who has a dubious history. You would think in front of Florida and his people, he's going to give us his best opportunity. But the guy smokes more weed than Cheech and Chong and Snoop Dogg, all three rolled up into one. And he's admitted to being high in fights before. And listen, I'm the easiest guy to please, but ideally what I'm looking for my fighter to provide me is his best effort on a night where he's focused. And I can't always trust that with Dumas, even though he's got the potential to be the home cooking favorite. I do like Michael O here in a fight that's going to stay standing. Michael O is a little bit of a bulldog, man. He's a Polish kid, got a good sturdy chin. He gets submitted, and I don't see Dumas submitting him. This can be a striking fight, and I tend to think that Michael O should be used somehow in parlays. And here's the cherry on top. Michael O recently went and changed camps. You know who he's fighting with? The Fighting Nerds. I mean, I'm telling you, that gym is on fire right now. Does that mean if they're going to transform Michael O? Not his fight hardware, but maybe his fight software.
Michael O, it definitely has a striking advantage statistically wise, over 5.08 significant strikes landed to Dumas at 2.15. So that's interesting. Both are about 50% on their accuracy here. I do see that Michael does absorb more. Maybe Dumas in his long range, in his arms, and just his physique. Maybe he stays away a little bit more when he's fighting, while Michael O is the more forward-facing, stalking type of a situation. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, we got to look at who Michael O's faced. The Cyclops, Shera Magomedov. No shame losing to him. Kevin Holland, long, tall, rangy guy, and Holland armbarred him. He subbed him. Michel Pereira, rear naked choked him. Kai Barallo, rear naked choke. He doesn't do well in the grapple. Meanwhile, we got Cedric Dumas. He doesn't know how to spell submission, to be quite honest with you. I mean, if we look at him, he had Dennis Tuilen in his last fight. Dennis Tuilen ain't even in the organization anymore and is really questionable fighter. And before that, he got beat by Ruzabov, who is, a good UFC fighter. I really think that the only thing that, in my opinion, Dumas has for him is size and physical attributes, which means something in a stand-up fight, and hometown. Other than that, I think the technical know-how and the better fight game and the sturdier chin and striking game lies with the shorter Polish fighter, Michael O.
I will keep my potential parlay piece in order, and hopefully more money comes in on Dumas. So anything else on the early prelims that caught your eye?
Kiev, you and I are from Phoenix, and I have to mention anyone that fights out of Phoenix. In this case, Trayshawn Gore, within the last year, moved his camp to the MMA lab. So that's a young man that I get to watch train and see him work. He's getting great training there. He fights a Brazilian, Marco Tulio, long, tall Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter. But that's who they gave Trayshawn Gore in his last fight. He got the same kind of fighter. And so he's a huge underdog here. And I don't think he should be, I think he should be an underdog. He sometimes wanders from the plan, but he's strong and durable and he believes in himself. And I want to just highlight that. But I think the fight that of the 4 early fights, my eye is on young Mitch Raposo, who's coming off his first UFC fight. It was against a guy named Lima that I'm convinced is a top 5 fighter in the UFC already and is going to be fighting for a championship. He lost a split decision to him, and now he faces a guy in Sumu Buderji, who is primarily a long, tall, stand-up striker. Not a lot of power, usually tries to do his work through accumulation. Let's call him Sue, arrives to this fight after losing 3 straight. Charles Johnson, Tim Elliott, Matt Schnell. He's going to be giving us his best effort. There's no question, because he's desperate and wants to get in the win column. But I think he's barking up the wrong tree in Raposo. Tough kid from Massachusetts. I think Raposo's very live underdog here, and he is a guy that I've already released earlier in the week when his price was a little better. But a plus price on Raposo, I think, is a very solid consideration.
Plus 145 currently on DK for Mitch Raposo. So we will be taking those notes and writing that down for the nice and early prelims here. Probably get that around 4 or 5 o'clock, probably around 5 o'clock, I would assume, maybe even a little earlier, since this is an East Coast event for us in the West Coast here on West Coast time. So that's exciting. Let's move on to the prelims then. And this is starting to heat up here because there's some great fights. We have Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. And I have to go to this, Lou, because you made a little comment. I thought these guys looked like twins. And then you said it about after 30 seconds in this fight, they're not going to look like twins. Can you please explain to me what your thoughts are?
Well, first of all, Elkins has the best nickname in the game, The Damage. And Elkins is appropriately named because that's what he does, damage. You can't hurt him. He comes at you for days. He's durable, not a fluent, precise, snappy striker, more kind of a brawler just to get in, get his hands on you, try and grapple with you, mug you down and roll. He's 40 and 5'10", but he's facing a kid that's going to be 35 and 6'1" in Erosa. And Erosa, an extreme couture fighter, is going to have size on his side. And I think he's going to use that size and length to try and batter Elkins from afar. I think if Elkins can get a hold of Erosa, it'll be an interesting fight. I'm not sure if he'll be able to. It's not really a fight that's on my radar, but it surely sets up to be an interesting fight. I'm currently seeing the total lined under 2.5. So they think someone's going to go here. And I would tell you that if I did lean anything in this fight, it's hard to lean under in an Elkins fight because you can hit him with a bunch of hammers and sawed-off shotguns, and all he's going to do is blink at you. So I would tend to think that this one could be a decision fight, and so might look at something in the over or fight to go to decision on this one.
Well, you've got plus money on the over 2.5 for these featherweights, and Julian Erosa to win by decision is plus 180, while his TKO KO prop is plus 250, and his submission prop is plus 300. You know, that's telling me, obviously, with blended odds, it's pretty close with what the books say. I think that I've watched Elkins fight enough times, and I've been surprised that he hasn't been knocked out as quickly as the damage he's been taking. It's funny that he's named The Damage because I always feel like the damage happens to him more often than the damage that he's given out. But he does come pretty fast and fierce, and I think this is going to be a real exciting fight either way. So I'm still going to think more about this, but I lean Erosa. I didn't lean him enough to say I'm going to use him in a parlay, though. I'm still a little worried that I don't know enough about Erosa, and maybe Elkins finally gets one where he can win.
Erosa is wildly inconsistent, and to consider him at that price, I think, is suicide for me. But again, they got to put lines on all these fights, and we get to decide which ones we want to pick and choose at. So I totally get it.
Well, let's blow over the next one because Jim Miller is literally plus 500 or more against Chase Hooper, who clearly is the much younger and hungrier fighter. Chase Hooper, came up through the ranks, and I feel like he was rushed into the UFC a little bit. Obviously, Jim Miller's been there forever, but he always kind of comes up from nowhere and gets that sub or that knockout. It's like Miller, it feels like when he steps up in competition, he really gets his ass kicked. But when he fights somebody that's, suspect, he ends up coming over the top. For his age, Jim Miller has been impressive. I feel like this guy has been there since UFC 100. He's 41 years old. And this man just keeps on going. I have the utmost respect for him. He just beat Damon Jackson as a dog, too. Got him in a guillotine late last year. Did lose to Bobby Green, but went the distance. But winning 3 out of his 4 last fights was pretty impressive. When it makes me look at Hooper at minus 800-ish, I feel like those are just too far of a number that I could mess with this fight.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what I do here, because Hooper is still learning, and he's going to want to get Jim Miller down. And so for that reason, it's Jim Miller via submission for some ridiculous high odds price that I put some recreational ham and cheese sandwich bet on.
All right, $20 on Hooper by sub, or on Miller by sub, which is probably going to pay, 30 to 1 or something. I don't even know. I'll pull it up right now.
It's going to be long, baby. It's going to be nice and long, and that's, to me, that's an easy way to just because that's Miller's path to victory. That's the mistake that Hooper could make, and I'm pulling it up right now. Jim Miller via submission, 1,800, baby. That might be a ham sandwich bet that would really be a fun one to hit, and it's not without the realm of possibility. I think it's his most reasonable way to win this fight, even though, let's face it, you got a 16-year age difference here. That's unheard of.
And if you're worried, here's the thing. If you could even go a little Chase Hooper by decision, Miller just hasn't been knocked out that much in his life. He has been subbed a few times too. Was it say 3? He's been subbed 3 times, and he's been
3 times.
Twice. Yeah. So the last time he's been knocked out was back. Oh geez, you got to go pretty back to Charles Oliveira back in 2018, and that's quite a long time. And it makes me just feel like Hooper gets the dub, but you probably get a situation where he wins by the short decision because you have a 3-round fight, and you're getting Chase Hooper plus 215 by decision. I know that you don't like to go those routes on both ends of the fighters, but if I could get a Jim Miller by submission and Chase Hooper by decision, I'll just split that pizza in half and I'll put some on each side. I think that would be a fun way to watch this fight, Lou.
Well, you can, but you can lose both to play in that game, and so I know if I do that, that's what's going to happen to me. More importantly, if I wanted to do that, and I thought it was going to be a Hooper decision, I'd go back on Jim Miller with the plus 3.5 plus 240. Listen, this points handicap thing that's available at DraftKings and FanDuel, I'm using more and more. Especially now, this isn't a perfect fight because the total is 1.5. But if you look at a fight that's lined on a 2.5, say Ige and Woodson, and you look at Ige plus the 3.5, that's a minus 210. So don't underestimate what these points are. And if you think Jim Miller is going to show up and take this kid to a good tight decision, which I don't think's out of the realm of possibility, you've got that to play with as well. This points handicap, I wonder how long it's going to be around, because I think there's great opportunity in it, and not everyone plays it.
I, too, have been using the points handicap more often since last year. What I will say is that a 10 to 8 round kind of screws that up a little bit. Does it not? Or doesn't it go by the scorecards? I thought it did.
No, that's exactly what it does. But you shop your points. Last week, Sabatini's getting 7.5, and he's a minus plus 100. Sabatini, who dominated the fight, plus 7.5 points in a 3-round fight, plus 100. That's like stealing. And we lost on Brito straight, but that Sabatini bet in parlays really made the night for me and saved us. So there's ways to do that. I really, I've been doing this a long time. Spend more time on the points. I'm just saying. Not you or our listeners.
There you go. And you would win both sides. You would win both in case Jim Miller happens to just lose the fight by decision. You're getting plus 240.
That's right.
Which is very nice. And obviously, Miller by sub, you don't even have to worry about that side of it.
And so let's say you take a fight and you see the over under is minus 250 to the over. So you're probably going to go to decision. Now I look at the guy and I can get the underdog plus 3.5 points. And I feel like that underdog, I almost want to take him straight up. But let's just say that the refs are screwed up. And so in the case of my guy goes out, beats the brakes off the other guy, and they split decision, job him, and it goes to the wrong guy. If I bet him straight, my money's gone. If I got the points, I've insured myself against poor judging. And if there's anyone that speaks up about poor judging, it's you, my friend.
You're absolutely right. I'm just trying to make the world an honest place. You know, we're always striving.
Hey, I get it. And it's a source of indigestion. When I had this kid Marshall 3 or 4 weeks ago, just hammer. He won the fight against some up and comer from South America. I think Marshall wins. They take it from him, but we had Marshall plus the 3.5 all kinds of ways, and it insulated us from the bad judging. And it's hard to count on me winning all my positions, and it's hard to count on me losing all my positions, but it's not hard to count on refs screwing up fights. I almost said the other word. And they do screw up fights.
Absolutely. And so you win both if Miller subs them out, because you got the point spread too, which means he covered the point spread, and you have Jim Miller by submission. So that's exactly
if it was me, I would take, if I wanted Hooper decision, if that's how I thought it was going to go, Hooper decision, Miller plus the 3.5. The problem is if Hooper finishes him early, you lose the decision, you lose the Miller, you're out too. So I really try, and when I'm using the points handicap, I really try and look at that total. And I don't do a lot of middling in the UFC. Unless it's rounds. I may try and take a fight starts round 3, but won't go to decision. But I don't try and get too cute like I did with Brito and Sabatini unless I get nervous. And I got nervous on that fight the closer it got to it.
All right. No, fair enough. Let's look at that. I'm going to keep that on the maybe list in the Jim Miller, plus the 3.5 is looking better and better to me as you talk about that. And that's what's great about it. You know, you do things and get reminded about things, and you look at fights. You can stare at a card for 5 hours, get your buddy on the show like Lou, and then he reminds you of some stuff that could be some great angles. So that's a great idea, Lou.
Works both ways, bro. Works both ways.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's skip up to Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson, and this is the main. I suppose it's the last event before the main card here. The main event on the undercard. Say what you want. You know what's interesting about this, Sean? And I looked at this fight long and hard. And Dan Ige is an aggressive fighter. He's powerful, and he can knock you out. And I look at Sean Woodson. He's lanky. He's tall, but he's really, really become much more of an intelligent fighter over the times I've been watching him, right? He's got the statistics, that make you think, he is a rightful favorite against Dan Ige. And the first thing I kind of looked at, was Sean Woodson winning this thing possibly by decision, or do I use Sean Woodson in a parlay where I can get some plus money if I find that other, like an Alex O or Michael O, I mean to say, or any other of the minus 200s, 240s, something like that. My issue with Sean is that with Ige is the shorter man. He is the more powerful man. So can he get Sean Woodson and knock him out? That would kind of blow that side of it up. I think that is possibly a live situation here. If this fight goes to decision, it's definitely Sean Woodson, in my opinion, that will win it because it went to decision, and because that means Sean Woodson fought a smart fight and was able to, stick and move, fend off Danny Gay's bullish style of diving right into him and try to knock him out. So those are my thoughts on it. I didn't make a play yet, Lou. I was seeing if you can get me over the top on something.
Well, from what I just heard, I think what you've just described is you're counting on these two having a stand-up battle, and I think, why would Ige do that? He's the more well-rounded guy. He knows he has to take that length and ability to maintain distance away from the longer, taller, less powerful Woodson. And so this is going to be Woodson playing bullfighter and Ige trying to get his hands on him. And if this fight goes to the ground, I think it's Ige controls the fight, and so where this fight is competed will tell us where it is. If it's standing, I believe Woodson is going to have advantage, provided that he is in the middle of the octagon maintaining distance. If Ige gets him backing up and can get him against the fence, then he can get him in, press him against, take him down. And now the fight swings to Ige, in my opinion. This is a huge step up for Woodson against Ige, a guy who has fought the elite, can't quite beat the elite, but beats everyone else that he's supposed to. So really telling fight here, fascinating clash of body types, a short, powerful, well-rounded guy against a long, lanky striker. And so I can't wait to watch it, but I don't have strong opinions either way. I mean, you see 2.5 rounds over is a pretty heavy number here. And so understanding Woodson is your underdog, if you like him, that could be a points handicap consideration in itself if they're not going to penalize you too much. But knowing how it works, Woodson, he's the favorite in the fight, so he's got to give 3.5 points, but you get plus 150. I don't think Woodson can finish Ige, so I surely wouldn't consider points. And Woodson at minus 175 in such a step up here would give me some hesitation. Yes, I think he's dominant if it stays standing. Will it stay standing?
That's a great call, and that's kind of exactly what I was worried about, is the clash of style. I will say, I was looking at Woodson's statistics. He does have a very good sprawl and very good at defending takedowns at 84%. But you hit the nail on the head where you said the strength of schedules here, which is what we like to say in football and basketball, but the strength of their opponents is much different, as Ige has fought the best of the best.
Yeah, as well. Padilla, Caceres, Jourdain. Not one of those dudes trying to even take him down. Dennis Bazooka from Serra-Longo. Okay, he probably tried a few times. And then you go back, Colin Anglin didn't try and take him down. Yusuf Zalal is a song and dance man. So, yeah, 84. His takedown rate looks good, but he hasn't fought guys that have tried to take him down. And that's another part of this when you keep peeling the levels back into the handicap. So Ige is going to try and take him down. What's Sean Woodson going to do in this fight? That's, to me, going to give you the answer, and I surely don't know it.
That's going to be a fun fight to watch. Ige coming off 3 out of 4 losses. He did beat Feely, but he's going to be aching for a win here to stay live here in the UFC. So that is some great points. Let's move it to the main card then. We got Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. I find this a fascinating fight. I have a pre-flop play on this. I didn't talk to you about it at all, so I'm gonna let you start on this one and see if I'm right, wrong, or where we agree or disagree.
Well, first of all, I don't have the corner on right, and I in some of these fights I talk on both sides. But as I break down this one, Dom Reyes has had a couple 2-fight resurgence where he's looked good again and starting to come back. Meanwhile, Krylov has been off since 2023. That's a long time. So he's coming back. I don't know that we're going to see a much different Krylov than what we've seen before, but what we've seen before, pretty good. He wants to fight. Meanwhile, Reyes, I think, is the fighter that can be fragile, but with the momentum, I think he's starting to believe again. And he, on the feet, I think will be the faster man. I think he's going to be the quicker, better striker of the two, even though Krylov is the guy that is 3 years younger. Reyes, an inch taller, about the same reach, a lefty. I think Krylov tries to wrestle, and if he can get Reyes down, he could pose problems for Reyes. And if he can't get Reyes down, I think the Reyes speed and athleticism will give Krylov some trouble. I see that I have to look at what current pricing is. I'm looking at early week stuff. I see Krylov right now minus 180, Reyes plus 150. Boy, it would be hard for me to lay $180 on a guy I haven't seen in 2 years, even though he's 32 years old. That's why I don't have a strong opinion here. I want to like Reyes.
I do too, and I did bet the resurgence on Reyes. And I got it a little bit better than the plus 150, and I probably should be saying these prices before we discuss the fight, but it's also fun to kind of come up with your own price and then see if it matches up. I just think that it should be closer to pick him for some of the things that you just said. I mean, Krylov has been off a lot for a long time, and I'm wondering why he was off for such a long time, because he was on a nice little run, winning some of those pretty decent sized fights. I mean, Krylov took care of Ryan Spahn, choked him out. Volkan Oezdemir, who maybe not be a big name now, but back in 2022, Volkan Oezdemir was a pretty big name, and Gustafsson, he just never really panned out, did he? But Krylov is definitely seen submissions before, and so I don't think Dominic's going to be that kind of guy. Krylov loses by submission by more times often than not. 6 submissions he's been subbed, although he knows how to do it himself, but he's only been knocked out once, and he's lost 2 decisions. He's won 2 decisions. It seems like Krylov likes to get the fight ended, as most of his fights, 28 of them have been done within usually 3 rounds, once in a while up the 5-rounder, but he's only went to 4 decisions, out of all of his fights. And so I wonder how much violence is that going to be. But when I look at Reyes here, this man stood with John Jones, and maybe John Jones was having a bad day, but there was a lot of people that thought he won. And then he went through John Blachowicz, Yuri Prochazka, and Ryan Spahn, and he did get knocked out by Spahn. He got caught. I think there's something wrong with him mentally. He comes back and beats Justin Jacoby as a dog, beats him bad in the first round, and then he takes out Anthony Smith, who's kind of a gatekeeper himself in this light heavyweight division. So I'm kind of betting the guy who I thought I knew when he fought John Jones over a guy who just, like I said, like you said before, haven't fought in a long time, has had some losses. A lot of times it's by decision when he actually loses. But I'm going to give Reyes a puncher's chance at plus 150 just because I think it should be closer to even money. Is that fair, Lou?
I think it's fair. I'm fascinated to watch the fight because we learn more about each. Reyes' momentum even more pronounced should he win. And if he doesn't, then Krylov kind of reinserts himself. So pretty important fight, really, within that division.
Could you tell me why Krylov hasn't fought in a while?
No, I can't. And I don't know why. What I can tell you is that he did have a fight with this Mirzakirnov scheduled for some months ago in 2024. It got canceled. And the UFC's carrying so much weight on their roster. Fighters they beg for 3-4 fights. They got to feed families too. And a lot of them can't get it. So I don't want to accuse him of injury or sidestepping or anything when I know more than likely is he wanted to fight and couldn't get one.
Yeah, that's very possible, like you said. And I think whoever wins this fight is going to be kicked up into the tier one potential, title bought, being that light heavyweight's kind of been weak up top, especially since John Jones left, especially since Alex Pereira just lost, and he was kind of dinking around, with his ideas, and Magomed's become the champion. So very interesting fight here to see who goes on to the next level and who might get that heavyweight or light heavyweight title fight. Let's move on to the next fight. We have Bryce Mitchell versus Jean Silva. And we already touched on this, Lou. You kind of already let your thoughts go. I think Jean Silva wins this inside the distance. I don't think Bryce Mitchell would get choked out. I'm kind of looking more towards the KO prop here, being that it pays more than doing both. But maybe you have a little bit more, because I know that Bryce Mitchell is a world-class wrestler, but I believe that Jean Silva, Brazilian, not necessarily known so much for his subs and jiu-jitsu, but maybe you can tell me that Jean Silva can finish this in a different way than by just KO.
John Silva doesn't want to finish this fight in any way other than KO. And that's what he intends to do in every fight he shows up to. He has unbelievable momentum, unbelievable explosive nature, unbelievable focus. He starts barking like a dog. The dude loses himself in the cage, and Bryce Mitchell ain't playing with a full deck to begin with. This is going to be a fascinating fight because Mitchell feels cornered. He feels cornered by the UFC, forcing him to fight this guy. He feels challenged. That this guy doesn't like him and hates him, and I listened to fighter interviews. There was all kinds of banter going on that we don't need to get into here. But I think that the UFC would like nothing more than for Silva to completely annihilate Mitchell here. You got to watch what you do and say when you're in the UFC. And as long as this fight is on two men standing up, Mitchell will be getting pieced up. But Mitchell has no intention of allowing this to be a stand-up fight. He's going to strike once or twice, only long enough to try and get on top and smother this guy. I don't think Mitchell can finish Jean Silva. Mitchell's not necessarily a finisher. He's a wrestler, and he doesn't have the hands to stand with him. I like Silva to win this fight, probably in devastating fashion. It's there for a reason. That's why the UFC has it in this place. That's why they put these two together.
No disagreement here. Maybe even a first round KO could look a little sweet. I'd be careful though. Bryce, like you said, if you're Jean Silva, Bryce Mitchell's game. You've trained for that as well. You're ready for that because that's all he has, And you're right. Bryce Mitchell's punches are going to be so.
Brito last week, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist, was supposed to be prepared for Sabatini, and Sabatini mopped the floor with him. And so we've seen money come in on Mitchell, and it's because of that. They think the wrestler is going to be able to snuff out the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. The difference is that Jean Silva's 5'7" and stocky, and Mitchell's 5'11" and long. Will he be able to get down to get to a leg? We'll have to see. I think that's going to be the difference in this fight.
I've seen Sabatini wrestle multiple times and destroy people, and I chickened out on him because he got knocked out in that last fight. And I very much regret not betting my lean with that price in Pat Sabatini. But this is a different story. And I think Jean Silva is just that much better, at least to get off the ground, if not getting taken down by a guy like Bryce Mitchell.
Well, it's surely a big step up for him. We know that.
Let's move on to Yair Rodriguez against Patricio Pitbull. And Rodriguez is minus 200, and Pitbull is around the minus or plus 165, 170 range. What do you think about this bout?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Pitbull's 37, but his fight game's still intact. And what he does have is very well-rounded game, and he's incorporated strong wrestling to his BJJ, and he's facing a guy that has no wrestling and really no BJJ. I shouldn't say that. Yair Rodriguez has evolved his game, and he's more aware of having to fend off takedowns and such. But you don't learn wrestling overnight. The fight at distance and standing is all Yair Rodriguez. I don't think Pitbull can navigate that length and his explosivity. However, I don't think he has any intention of doing that, because he's going to wrestle him up and get close and fight him from inside the pocket. And this is going to be a fascinating fight. I can tell that Yair must keep it standing. Probably Pitbull has to take it down and stay in close condition, close proximity. I don't really know how this fight's going to go. But I want to think that Pitbull has the more well-rounded game and might be able to surprise some people here.
Yeah, I'm almost doing a 180 on this myself. To be honest with you, of course, there's no shame in losing to Brian Ortega and Alexander Volkanovski, but it was inside the distance of both of them that he lost. He lost to Max Holloway, and his win against Brian Ortega was fugazi, as Brian Ortega just completely broke his shoulder somehow. And it was just the weirdest, most awkward thing. I was on Ortega that fight, and I was pissed about it. Then you look at the Josh Emmett. He did sub Josh Emmett. I love Josh Emmett, but it's Josh Emmett. I mean, what can you say, man? Jeremy Stevens was still overrated even back in 2019 with his win. And I guess Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, was probably his more real best win, I would say. And you're going all the way back to 2018 here. I'm looking at Patricio. Man, this guy's been around forever. He's 37 years old, but he's got, mostly in the Riz and a little bit in the Bellator. But, this man's fought hard, and I almost feel like this is the motivation while he's going to want to go prove what he is. And he's finally fighting here in the UFC. This man's never fought in the UFC, and I feel this is just more of an opportunity for him. I'm kind of flipping in my mind a little bit over to Pitbull, as he has 12 KOs, 12 submissions, and 12 decisions himself. 36-7, not too shabby. I know he's lost recently a couple times. He got caught with a punch by Suzuki. But man, I think that he could be live with a plus money number here. So I'm kind of talking myself into that side a little.
Well, when you went back and listed all those fighters that Yair had fought, you skipped the last one that was right before the Korean Zombie, and that was Frankie Edgar. And I bring that up because Frankie Edgar and Pitbull are the same size, same shape, same fight ability. And while I'll give Yair a tremendous amount of growth in wrestling since that fight to Frankie and maturity, the fact of the matter is that's how Pitbull's going to attack him. And we saw what Frankie did. I'm not saying that's what Pitbull at 37 can do, but that's the plan he's going to use, is take him down, get on top. You nullify his distance, his kicks. By doing that, you turn the fight in your favor. Will he be able to do that?
That's a great question. The plus 165 makes it look a lot easier to take those shots. So we'll put that in the hopper as another potential play as well. Here we go. We get to the co-main event: Michael Chandler versus Patty the Batty Pimlet. And man, I'll tell you this, I don't know what the hell to think about Patty anymore, man. I try, after that fight where I thought he lost to Gordon, and so does most of the UFC and MMA world, I just think he just got better. I think Gordon, every fighter is going to have a bad fight. Maybe that was Patty's bad fight, and he kind of acknowledged, people's thoughts. And I thought he even said he might want to fight Gordon again. I don't know what happened with that. Maybe his corner wouldn't let it happen. But he's got an 8-year age difference against Michael Chandler here. Now he's fighting in America, but I think he's going to have plenty of people in Miami cheering for him just because of how cocky he is and how loud he is. and how he finishes his fights and how exciting this man is. Um, Chandler, to me, as after he's kind of become an announcer, I almost feel like he got a little comfortable. Now, don't get me wrong; he's lost against the best when he's lost four of his five last fights, literally the best. Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, and Charles again, right? The only person he hasn't fought was Islam. Tony Ferguson, it's hard for me to really give him a ton of credit on that one. Both fighters did fight Tony Ferguson, though, and Patty Pimlet, I thought, struggled a little bit more against Ferguson, but it is what it is. I think that the UFC needs Patty to win this, in my opinion. I think that he's the guy that is going to be selling the tickets. But in my opinion, Michael Chandler, I'm just not sure how his gas tank is anymore. I'm sure it was good in the past. I'm just real curious to see your thoughts on this
one. I really have so many questions here. Patty's the bigger kid. Patty's the one with the upside. But Patty, while he could dominate Chandler if this fight goes to the canvas, he gives away tremendous expertise when it's on the feet. Chandler will be the faster guy, the more fluent striker, and the way more powerful guy as well. Patty has terrible defense when he's in flurries by leaving his chin up and exposed. I suppose the only thing I'm comfortable in saying is if this fight ends early, it's because Chandler catches him. And if it goes past 1.5 rounds, 2 rounds, then Patty submits Mike Chandler. Mike Chandler is hard to count on as a fighter because you don't know if he's there to get a bonus and make a show like he did against Gaethje and Poirier by blowing out and jettisoning his supply and just standing there in a firefight. Or if he going to beat the brakes out of, knock the face off of Tony Ferguson, who is a compromised fighter. So I got more questions than answers here. I think that, again, the total in this fight is what, 2.5 rounds?
Yeah, it's 1.5 rounds. And I thought that it was going to be a 3-round fight. And I asked you last week, and I thought you might have said 5 rounds. Isn't this a
no, it's a 5-round fight. And so if and I'm looking at it, 1.5 over minus 210, absolutely. I think that it goes over 1.5. It could be tough for Chandler to handle Patty's size. When you look at the fight, when they stand next to each other, Patty's going to look so much thicker and bigger. He really isn't. So I suppose I'm saying that I lean to Patty.
Yeah, a Patty inside the distance, being that's a 5-round fight, is probably the best look that I can think of. I just think that Chandler is kind of cashed in now and wants to be an announcer. I could be completely wrong about that. And Chandler is fighting the United States, and maybe he's got a little bit left, but Patty's on his way up. Patty wants a title fight. I do think he might get a title fight at the end of this year. That would be really interesting. I know there's other people gunning for this weight class, as we both know, with Ilya and a few others. So you might just have to get in line here. But this is the way he finishes this fight might determine that. So I'm going to go with Patty by TKO, KO, DQ, or submission. And I'm just trying to find the price on that right now.
Oh, so you're taking it inside the distance.
Yes, you can just play inside the distance on Bet Online and other places. If you choose it on DraftKings, you do win by KO, TKO, DQ, or submission. Same thing, basically. It's minus 120 right now on DraftKings, which, man, I kind of was hoping for a little bit better of a number than that. I'm not taking minus 120.
Why?
Because 150 is because I can get 150 on just the win. I mean, I just think the 30 cents isn't really worth it to me. I have to win inside the distance then. If Chandler somehow lasts and just gets beat up, yet doesn't, the ref just wants the fight to keep going, and you get a win with Patty both ways. It's for 30 cents. That's why I would do that. Am I wrong on that, or would you take the 30 cents and take the chance it gets done?
I like the 120. Yeah, because I don't think this fight goes the distance. So let's see what that price is.
Yeah, that's why I want to pull it up here on Bet Online because they usually have some better numbers for that. I almost feel like DraftKings knows where the money's going. No, it's both minus
Fight
120.
fight to go the distance, Chandler and Patty.
Yeah, fight to.
Yes, plus 350. They're saying there's no way it goes the distance. So why not save 30 cents?
Yeah, Patty Pimlet minus 120 also on Bet Online, just because I would pay the 30 cents for the insurance. Apparently, a lot of people are thinking that way, and the books might need the decision. Which
Well,
is
I tend to be safe, like you just said, and I have no criticism against that. But the good news is I can speculate all I want because I'm not touching this fight.
There you go. I also think it does get done within the distance, but if they gave me a 50-cent difference, I'd probably think differently. I would pick it within the distance. I'll shop this around a little bit, but right now let's go by Patty just minus 150 because that number is out there. So next, let's hit the main event, my man. Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. Alexander's minus 130. This is coming down too, and money's coming down Diego Lopez, and Diego Lopez you can have for around plus 110-ish. I'm not gonna lie, I flip-flopped a little bit on this. The size is so much bigger with Diego. I wonder if Alexander's compromised. I think Alexander's a better fighter. I've seen Volkanovski fight for years, and I think he's the best of 145 ever. And the man's leg kicks are just fierce. I wonder if he chops Lopez down. How motivated is he? But then Lopez is just 5 inches taller. He's strong. He just finds the finish incredibly. And I've won some money on Lopez, and I said I wasn't going to stop betting him unless he fights Ilya, and here we are fighting Volk, and I'm backing out. So maybe you can get me to either side or to a bet on this, but I haven't touched it yet.
Yeah, great. I mean, you hit the deal points. I mean, Diego comes in with unbelievable momentum. He's the longer man, the taller man, the younger man, and he also is carrying a backpack that has 700 pounds of recency on his back. That's why his number has gone from plus 150 down. They're betting him because of recency, because of what they've seen. But what we've seen is him tire in a 3-round fight against Ige, and I'm going to throw it out because he got screwed around 3 times in that fight. It started at 45, went to 55, took the fight on hours' notice at 160. So I'm going to give him a pass on that. But this is a huge step up. And who did Volkanovski lose to? Topuria and Makhachev. So people have recency on Lopez. They look at Volkanovski's age. They see he was knocked out twice, and they are putting him in the graveyard. Not me. I'm not doing it because I know how focused Volkanovski is. I know I'm going to get his best fight. And I watched him 3 times completely outstrike Max Holloway by using his feet. This is a feet fight, and Volkanovski has feet, and Lopez doesn't yet. Lopez is not going to be able to catch up to Volk. And after this fight gets into the 3rd round, this is going to be a one-sided fight and a PhD fight where Lopez will earn his PhD in MMA, but you won't want to fight him after this. But I think this is a great opportunity to get Volk. I released him at minus 120 earlier in the week when it got to its lowest point. Now it's starting to go back up again. You'd have to think the buyback was coming eventually. And so I'm on Volk, and those are the reasons why. Am I correct? I sure hope so. If not, if Lopez goes out there and is able to touch him early, I think he can surely knock him out. I don't think anybody that doubts that isn't watching these fights. I just don't think he's going to be able to catch up.
Makes you wonder if Volk by decision is something to look at too. Yeah, man, I see a lot of different ways that this goes down. If Volk is truly compromised, he does get knocked out, but Volk is I mean, if I look at the holes of their careers, Volk is the much better fighter, and there is no shame losing to Ilya in Islam Makhachev. There's no shame in it. As a matter of fact, their first fight is a lot of people thought Volk beat Islam, back in February 11th in 2023. That was too close of a fight. So yeah, I think I'm on the Volk side more, especially that you said that it's going to be done by the feet. I think it's going to be the leg kicks. He's going to work Lopez's legs. And I think that's where it's going to tire out. Lopez is going to make some poor decisions later in the fight. That could really open it up for an Alexander Volkanovski KO. I'm going to pick Volk to win right now. Maybe I can get a better number if some more money comes in on Lopez. And so we'll see what happens by Saturday. But like you mentioned before, now that UFC's back in the spotlight, maybe we do get some more money here on the dog and can cash in with Volk, Lou.
Well, I don't. I mean, most of the bettors are going to start betting tomorrow, and tomorrow late. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Morning of fight, etc. Should be great. Going to be an awesome fight. We fans benefit from it. I'll also say Lopez has not been 5 rounds in the UFC yet. Volk has done it an awful lot. 5-round experience is a substantial advantage.
All right. Well, brings us to best bets then. And I'm going to personally stick with, I gave you 2 of them really. I liked Reyes by the plus 150, but I'm more confident that Patty's going to win. I'm going to go Patty minus 150 is my best bet for this UFC card as of right now, at least best bet for free bets. Lou, do you have anything that you want to give out for a best bet?
Well, I think I've hung my hat on young Mitch Raposo pretty good earlier in our discussion. I'm going to use him as an underdog. And then, we go up to the main card. I suppose what I'll do is use Volkanovski at the current minus 130 or wherever he is. I would say you better just take it now. If you want to wait and hope that more public money late comes in on Lopez, I think that's probable. You might be able to get a better price on Volkanovski. So what I'll say, I have 120. I'll say watch it. You people out there can watch the number. If you see it tick up, buy Volkanovski now. If you see it go down, be patient, because I believe that the late money will be Lopez money. You might be able to get Volk close to pick him by the time the fight goes down.
Oh, there you go. That would be great. I'm going to wait on this one, and we'll definitely look for Volk, Lou. And what our fans should be doing is looking for you and your wonderful MMA experience. That's what the summer is all about, spring, summer. It's all about UFC and other MMA that Lou gets into. Where could our listeners and viewers get your wonderful information and media?
Yeah, I do a couple podcasts. On Monday, I do a Sneak Teep podcast. So each week there's a UFC event. I break down the opening lines and where the numbers moved on a Monday perspective. And then on Friday, the Bout Business podcast I do. Those are my final releases for all UFC events. And you get that at gamblu.com. It's not available wherever podcasts are sold. That is behind a paywall. And so if you're interested, go to gamblu.com and hit the Bout Business podcast tab. If not, I give hints and fodder at the Sneak Teep podcast, and we get some 700 people across the globe listening to the Sneak Teep. I'm giving actionable information to people for free on Monday about fights each week. So we're trying to do our part. I appreciate you letting me mention that, Kiev. Thanks for having me on today, my friend.
Always, Lou. Best of luck on your fights, and we'll be texting this weekend.
Sounds great.